So, till now we have learned about what is weaning, what is the process of weaning, and what are the different factors that can impact this weaning process, and what are the different types of weaning, and what are the foods that can be included during the process of weaning, and what foods have to be avoided during the process of weaning. So now let's try to understand what can be the different set of problems or challenges that can be expected during the process of weaning. So let's look into it. So one of the problems that can be expected during the process of weaning is resistance and refusal. So some babies might resist the introduction of new foods or the replacement of breastfeeds with other liquids or solids. They might show frustration or discomfort during this process of weaning. Because this weaning process is a big change for them, and they can express their frustration or discomfort through various signals or body cues like fussiness or crying, or there can be some changes in their sleep patterns. Because till now they are used to breastfeeding, right? So now when you stop that specific breastfeeding, completely not stopping the breastfeeding, it's like a transition phase where you slow down the number of breastfeeds, the frequency of the breastfeeds, and slowly you move on them to the semi-solid and the solid feeds or the complementary feeds. So obviously whenever the change is happening, that can be resisted, because as we have learned in the breastfeeding topic, so breastfeeding gives a kind of emotional security or the sense of security to the baby. So he might feel a little insecure when the number of breastfeeds are decreased, or the frequency of the breastfeeding is reduced. So but it takes time for them, but they will definitely get adapted to it. So this is one of the most common problem that can be faced during the process of weaning. So another challenge that can be expected during the process of weaning is emotional attachment. So as we have already studied in the topic of breastfeeding, that breastfeeding is a source of comfort and emotional connection between the mother and the baby. So babies might struggle with the emotional aspect of weaning, leading to mood changes or clinginess. So whenever the mother reduces the frequency of the breastfeeding, the baby can become much more clingier to her, and there can be mood changes in the baby. So because they're just struggling to adapt to that new change. So somewhere they might feel a little sense of insecurity can be there, or that emotional connection or the comfort is what they might be missing sometimes. So how can we overcome this? By practicing active feeding. So what is this active feeding? You have to feed your baby, while giving these complementary feeds. So try to feed your baby by adapting a caring attitude. So instead of doing a passive feeding, while feeding the baby, try to communicate with the baby. Try to talk with them, play with them, interact with them. As a result, it not only helps your baby to feel much more secure and emotionally connected, it can also stimulate your baby's appetite and can also help in your baby's developmental skills. And most importantly, you can also practice eating at the same time along with your baby at the same place. That can also help in improving appetite, and that will help distractions, or that will help avoid distractions to your baby, and the weaning process can become much more smoother and more comfortable for the baby and to the mother or the caregivers as well. So try to be more connected with them during the feeding process, so that can ease out your weaning process. So now let's see some more problems that can be expected during the process of weaning. So it can be engorgement, which we have studied during the breastfeeding as well. So it's a breast engorgement, that is the fullness of the breast, which can lead to tender or painful or uncomfortable breasts. So if breastfeeding is being reduced gradually, the breast might get engorged as the body adjusts to producing less milk, which can be uncomfortable or painful. So when you have decided to start on the weaning process, the frequency of the breastfeeding reduces, right? But the body takes a little time to adjust in the production, to reduce the production of the milk. So during this transition phase, your breast might be producing enough amount of milk, but the output or the expression or the usage of the breast milk might be reduced because of the decreased frequency of breastfeeding. So which can lead to that engorgement of the breast, which might make you feel uncomfortable or painful, or they can be tender breasts. Then next one can be clogged milk ducts or mastitis. So the risk of clogged milk ducts or mastitis can increase during the process of weaning. And usually the milk ducts can get clogged, and if it's not addressed properly, it can lead to inflammation of the breast, which is called as mastitis, and that has to be addressed immediately. And how can we reduce or minimize this particular risk of clogged milk ducts or mastitis is by adapting proper weaning techniques. So what can be that? Whenever you're trying to adapt weaning, make sure the weaning is very much gradual. Okay, so unless and until there is a complication or a condition or an indication where the breastfeeding has to be stopped immediately, like where the mother has to be on some medication or has exposed to some infection or something, then probably the sudden stoppage of the breastfeeding has to occur. But in normal scenarios, try to go slow on the weaning process. Maybe initially you can just cut down or reduce only one breastfeeding and replace that with the complementary feed, and slowly you can also try to increase the gap between the breastfeeding times. And you can also, even if you're not feeding at that moment, it's always good to express out the breast milk or pump out the breast milk from both the breasts. And whenever it is possible, try to massage the breasts so that you can reduce the risk of this clogging of the milk ducts or mastitis. The other problem that can be faced is change in bowel habits. So whenever you introduce new foods to the babies, sometimes that can lead to change in the pattern of their bowel habits. So few more challenges that can be expressed during the process of weaning are, again, whatever the problems or the challenges that we have been discussing till now, we're not saying that all the challenges can be faced at a time, or all the challenges will be faced by by the specific caregivers or the parents. Few of them, or few of these problems can be faced or expected during the process of weaning. So the other one is nutritional concerns. So till 6 months of the age, the baby will be completely on the breast milk. So the breast milk can take the or can take care of the entire nutritional requirements of your baby till 6 months of age, including hydration requirements. But post 6 months, as your baby is growing, the baby will be having, or the baby's body will be having higher nutritional demands or the requirements for a better growth and development. In that scenario, the breast milk will not be able to meet the entire requirements of the baby. So post 6 months, slowly the nutritional the breast milk will be able to afford only half of the nutrition, two-thirds of the nutrition requirements, then half of the nutrition requirements. So it's just slows down. So that is the reason why post 6 months weaning is very, very important. Introducing the baby to semi-solid foods plays a very, very important role. And just not including any type of a food, you also have to make sure by including or introducing them to this specific semi-solid food, are they able to meet their required nutrients, or are they able to meet their nutrition demands, is what you have to check for, so that they don't fall in the nutrition deficiencies, any kind of nutrition deficiencies, whether it is macro or micro. So ensuring a proper nutrition is very, very important to reduce the risk of nutrient deficiencies in the babies. Next can be the sleep changes. So whenever the babies are in the transition process, that is in the weaning process, few of them can experience disturbances in their sleep patterns because they are trying to adjust to the new feeding routines, so that can impact their sleep patterns or schedules. The other one can be parental emotions. So parents can, during this process of weaning, parents can experience a range of emotions during the weaning process, like sadness or feeling guilt, or sometimes even relief as well. So why can be the most common scenarios where they can be guilt is sometimes, when if it is not like a baby-led weaning, but it's a mother-led weaning where there is a requirement of immediately returning to the work, or maybe where she has to take some medications, or having some infections or diseases where the breastfeeding has to be gradually reduced or stopped immediately. In that scenarios, the mother might feel a little guilt that she's not able to feed her baby properly, give a good amount of breastfeeding properly. So this is quite a common thing, but we have to understand that, or maybe you can motivate your client that whatever it is right for the baby, the mother is doing it. So you just can simply encourage her to whatever she is doing, it is the right thing for the baby. So let's see few more challenges that can be expected during the process of weaning. So one is timing challenges. So this particular process of weaning might coincide with other transitions in the baby's life, like teething, that is eruption of those baby teeth. So we all know when the teething happens, when the teeth is getting erupted, they just feel so fussy, irritated, and all these things can happen, and there can be some illnesses, or maybe it's a time for them to start on with the daycare, where the parents or the caregivers have to get back to the work, and and hence they might have to be put in the daycare, so which can make the process a little more complex for the babies to adjust. So that can be a little challenging for both the parents as well as the baby. And they can also be the pressure or outside influence. So parents may face pressure from others to wean or not to wean at a certain pace, which can add stress to the process. Okay, so there might be some other family members or friends or relatives who might be saying, okay, this is the right time to wean off, you haven't still weaned off yet, when will you be weaning off your baby, so are you still breastfeeding? So these kind of pressures can these kind of conversations can create a pressure or the outside influence on the parents or the mother specifically. So one thing you can advise is, see, first 6 months it has to be exclusive breastfeeding, and post that, whenever the baby is ready and whenever the mother is ready, they can start the weaning process, and there is no need to get pressurized or no need to get under the influence of the outsiders. It is the mother and the baby's call to take when to start the process of weaning. But exclusive for the 6 months, exclusive breastfeeding has to happen unless there are the indications, as we have discussed previously, where it requires the immediate stoppage of breastfeeding.